Welcome back to Patrick's Aviation. Here's part 2 of the early World Cup predictions here. And right now we are just quickly going through all the third place teams that I predicted to go through. And again, it consisted of Japan, Iran, South Korea, Norway, Algeria, Paraguay, Ivory Coast, and Saudi Arabia to go through as the third place teams. And now let's head to the knockout groups. And again, guys, before we get started, please check out the first video that I have already posted. And now we start with Germany versus Paraguay. Honestly, Germany hasn't been the greatest for the past years, neither has Paraguay, but I do think Germany will come out on top. So now, time for the next game. And wow, here we do have France versus Japan. Now, I do think France will blatantly go through, but there could be some upsets here that Japan could create. It's a very good chance that they can, but I just don't think so. France has the just amazing quality overall, while Japan does have great quality, just not enough to beat heavy favorites like France. And now here we have UEFA Playoff Pot D versus Playoff A. So for D, I do think it would be Denmark, and A, I do think it would be Bosnia. While I do think this matchup could be favorites for Denmark to go through, but I just don't think Denmark actually has the good quality, and it could actually be a very 50-50 game, and depending on possession and just overall playing style and mentality. And I do think somehow Bosnia will actually go through. Ever since Denmark's 2020 run, it just hasn't been looking the same for Denmark, and Bosnia are slowly going up on the rise up. So this will be a very interesting game if it was to play out on June 28th, if my predictions are correct. So I do think Bosnia go through. And now this is a good matchup, Brazil versus Netherlands. This will be a very close game, but not as close as some people will think. I do think Netherlands now is actually a better team than Brazil currently, and as this could be the first World Cup where Brazil aren't really like top heavy favorites, and Netherlands and Brazil are kind of on a closer tier of style currently. I already predicted an upset of Morocco topping the group over Brazil, which honestly isn't that big of an upset these days. And overall, their games haven't been that impressive except their 2-0 victory over Senegal, but they tied to Tunisia and lost to Japan, which really isn't impressive overall. And Brazil aren't looking good currently. They do have some interesting matchups in March, which will show a lot of the team playing style for the World Cup. On the other hand, Netherlands had an okay World Cup qualifiers run, having tied to Poland 1-1 twice and almost losing to Lithuania 3-2 on the victory, but that was very close and very dangerous for them, losing heavy points there. The Netherlands could have a few slip-ups and probably will have a few slip-ups, but against this game at such high stakes in the round of 32 only, they can't go out this early. They're gonna make it through, and I say Netherlands will be victorious. So here, a very interesting matchup, Colombia versus Croatia. Now here, I do think Croatia and Colombia is a very equal matchup, and they're actually playing on a friendly on March 27th, which will be a very interesting matchup here, as this could be a possible matchup already in the round of 32 knockouts. Croatia had an okay World Cup qualifiers, except for a few slip-ups where they almost lost to Montenegro or conceded goals to the Faroe Islands. Colombia overall had a very good qualifiers, getting third place with 28 points, just behind Argentina and Ecuador. Here it will be close, but I do say Colombia will be victorious. Next group is Spain versus Austria. No questions asked, it's Spain. Yes, it will be Spain, but Austria, you can't write them out. This is just a very difficult matchup with Spain versus Austria. I think Spain will easily handle Austria, but Austria have been on form with their manager Ralf Rangnick. They had a good Euros, topping their group, just falling short to Turkey, unfortunately. But Spain is just one of the best teams in the world, and Austria just won't be able to do anything about this. It's just a very difficult matchup to play against. Now, UEFA Playoff C versus Algeria. I predicted that Turkey will be the Playoff C winner, and leading to the conclusion that Turkey will win this game. Algeria has been in some sort of like mid form kind of these past few years. I mean, the latest AFCON, they got knocked out by Nigeria in the knockouts of the quarterfinals. But Nigeria is just a very good African team, and they lost to them. And Algeria could put up a good fight against Turkey, but just Turkey has been in good form these past few years. Their great Euro run, losing to the Netherlands, just overall a good run, and this team is slowly building up to become a better and better team, which I do think Turkey will win this game. Next up is Belgium versus Korea. Belgium in the World Cup has such an easy group, like it's a piece of cake for them. But Belgium, ever since their golden generation, it hasn't been really the same. I mean, yes, they do have youngsters like Jeremy Doku who've been great, but their prime era is over and might not come back for a while, which therefore, I just think this game will be a very close game to what people could think on paper. I don't think Belgium's a top 10 team anymore, and I don't think they've been a top 10 team ever since maybe 2020. Now, on the other hand, South Korea have had an okay 2025 year, like beating countries like Ghana, Paraguay, Bolivia, but then still losing to bigger Asian teams like Japan or getting dominated by Brazil. But that's kind of expected, but I still kind of think right now South Korea could win this, and I'm going to stick with that prediction for now. And now here we have Morocco versus Poland, which is the playoff B team that I predicted to go through. Like right here, Poland has gotten so much better in quality ever since Michał Probierz resigned and Jan Urban came in the middle of the summer in 2025. But Morocco, they have been on such a rise since the 2022 World Cup, especially on their youth side, who they could use for the World Cup. Morocco, I predicted to win their group with Brazil and Scotland and Haiti, but right now it's just Morocco's form has been good. Got second place in AFCON, just came short with all their scandals as well. It was all a mess, but all in all, they're still a great team. And they still prove to the world that they're one of the best African teams there are. And they got to the third place game and got fourth in the last World Cup. And they've just been great overall and such a high improvement these past few years. And then on the other hand, Poland's World Cup qualifier runs were decent. In the beginning, it was very bad, in my opinion, barely winning to Lithuania and Malta, and then losing to Finland, which is like so many places below in the rankings. And overall, ever since the new manager came in, the team is slowly rising up, tying to big teams like the Netherlands as well. I just still feel uncertain about Poland defeating teams like Morocco still. So I will predict Morocco going through on this one. There are friendlies and playoffs for both of those countries, which could change my opinion on this entire World Cup and how the knockouts will go out. And here, this is the game where I feel like, for me, I have an upset here because I feel like right now Senegal are in such great form and Ecuador is in immense form as well. But just looking at the overall World Cup qualifier stats currently, in AFCON stats, yes, Senegal did win with an amazing game against Morocco. It was an absolute amazing game to watch live. But Ecuador, second place, and I'm pretty sure they had point deductions as well before the World Cup qualifier started, and right now I feel like Ecuador are very defensively in form, especially like Caicedo and players like that. So right now, I think this game will be one of the closest games yet. Currently, I predict Ecuador, but things could absolutely change. So, Ecuador's my choice. Next is Mexico, Saudi Arabia. Honestly, there isn't much to say here. Saudi Arabia aren't one of the greatest teams here in this World Cup. Not really favorites to do anything or even get out of their group. I do think that Mexico had a decent 2025 year, not the best at all. Yes, they did win the Gold Cup, but they won that against like a horrible in-form USA, just absolutely horrible USA team. Mexico didn't have the greatest 2025 year, but I still do think Mexico have the quality to make it through to the round of 16, per usual. And now here we have an absolute banger of a game, England versus Norway. I did predict Norway to do very well in their group against France and Senegal. And right here, both teams are obviously great teams, as Norway actually, they haven't been in the World Cup in a very long time. But England have been decent as well under Tuchel, but not up to expectations as usual. They might not make it far into this World Cup. And yes, they still could be favorites, but not top heavy favorites as they could have been last World Cup or 2 World Cups ago. Norway's World Cup qualifiers, they went steamingly hot. They were just insane. One of the best performances in qualifiers I've ever seen. And then England, they had a pretty easy group for them, so they obviously made it on top in first place. But currently, as things are going, I predict the absolute shocker, which honestly, if I was thinking normally, I would probably choose England, but right now, I have a feeling for another upset here of Norway beating England. Yes, you heard it. Norway will beat England at the round of 32. Very fast exit for England. Next game, Argentina versus Uruguay. Come on, there isn't really much to say. I'm going to choose Argentina, one of the greatest teams right now in present day football. And currently, they're just playing good, top their South America qualifier group against all South American teams. Uruguay had a not that good of a World Cup qualifier run. Wasn't the greatest. And the Uruguay team isn't the greatest right now. Their kind of golden generation, I think, is gone. And I do say Argentina go through. And now here, the United States versus Egypt. USA, pretty crappy beginning of the year leading up to the Gold Cup. Last few months of the 2025 season, starting after the Gold Cup in September with their first international friendlies. Overall, 2025 was a decent year, concluding to the end of the year. They didn't really let down on teams, beating Paraguay and teams like that. Egypt have not been good, let's be honest. USA will defeat them. Switzerland versus Iran. I think this is kind of obvious where it's going. Overall, on paper, Switzerland had an easy group except for Sweden, but Sweden absolutely disappointed, so no point putting them out there. But Kosovo, they did struggle against Kosovo, which was a very, very impressive to watch. It was awesome to watch, especially the last match day tying to Switzerland. Kosovo did great. But we're here to talk about Switzerland, who, let's say, overall had a great World Cup run. So I think Switzerland will definitely win this game if this were to play out on July 2nd in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Iran haven't been a good team in recent years. They have been consistent to making these World Cups, though, which is pretty good for them. They take that, but if they're in the knockouts, they want to make a surprise here. But they won't. Switzerland are a team that can make it to the round of 16 quarters without a problem. Therefore, Switzerland go through. And here, we have Portugal versus Ivory Coast. A very interesting matchup I wouldn't have thought seeing in this World Cup. Portugal, obviously, Ronaldo's final World Cup. And this will be like a World Cup to tribute Diogo Jota. And this will just be a very interesting match to play out. Obviously, Portugal are heavy favorites, and I will follow with that. I do think Portugal will go through, but let's go through Portugal's and Ivory Coast World Cup qualifier run. World Cup qualifier run started off great. It slowly kind of got worse, especially that loss to Ireland where Ronaldo got the red card, and just Ireland's amazing comeback to getting that qualification spot against Hungary for the playoff spot. Portugal overall had a good run with the exception of 2 slip-ups with the tie and a loss. And then Ivory Coast had a great World Cup qualifying run without losing a single game and tying 2, except for a few slip-ups and Gabon doing pretty good in the qualifiers as well. But I do say, obviously, Portugal will go through. Another fantastic matchup already in the round of 16, Germany versus France. Both teams, great top European teams. Germany, though, not as good as France to these present day. France obviously made the World Cup final and then won the World Cup 2 World Cups ago. France are right now the better team, definitely on paper, and I will stand by that. They both had decent World Cup qualifier runs, except that Germany lost to like Slovakia, let's say. But I do say, without a doubt, France will win. And wow, Bosnia versus Netherlands in the round of 16. Surprising to see Bosnia here with my predictions. Right here, it's kind of obvious who will win, but will I have an upset? Let's look at their qualifiers run. Bosnia started off great and then slowly losing these games when Austria joined in, and then eventually got beaten by Austria for that first place automatic qualification, leading them to playoffs, which I do think they will go through. Netherlands, on the other hand, not so great of a World Cup qualifier run. Again, as we stated earlier in this video, 2 ties to Poland and almost lost in a 3-2 historical Dutch game against Lithuania away, where Memphis Depay became the top scorer for the Netherlands national team. But other than that, Netherlands will go through. Next up, we have Colombia versus Spain. A great matchup. Kings of Europe versus South America's techniques of football. This will be a great game to watch. Overall, I do think there could be a few red cards, honestly, looking at this game. It's a very interesting game here. Let's look at the qualifiers. Spain, without a doubt, had a great World Cup qualifiers run, getting that first position without a problem. Honestly, Colombia had a great World Cup qualifiers run, tying to teams like, of course, Argentina. In the last match, they having a crazy game against Venezuela. Yes, Venezuela isn't a top flight team, but 6-3 was a crazy scoreline to look at. But overall, right now, as forms are, Spain are the clear favorites to go through, and I will stick with that. Spain will go through. Ooh, and then here we have a great matchup. Turkey versus Korea Republic. A rematch of the 2002 third place game where Turkey won. I do think it will be a similar scenario here where Turkey will defeat South Korea. South Korea aren't the greatest team right now, but obviously, yes, a top team in Asia. And Turkey are slowly going on the run-up, doing decent in the Euros, just falling short. Yes, of course, in the mid stages of the knockouts in the Euros. Right now, I do think Turkey will win. A very interesting matchup, Morocco versus Ecuador. Honestly, I do think this game is like the match of the dark horses. Who will actually impress the most? And right now, both teams are good defensively, but I do think right now Morocco is better attacking-wise compared to Ecuador, and more balanced compared to Ecuador. Ecuador is more of a defensively well-built team. Both teams are impressing in their own continents right now, but right now, as of now, Morocco did get to the AFCON finals, proving that they are an African top team, and I will stick with that top team kind of gameplay, and Morocco will go through. And now we have a good matchup here, Mexico versus Norway. Earlier, previously in this video, we went over kind of their form in 2025 / the qualifiers, and currently as things stand, looking at it, Norway will go through with this impressive attack of like Odegaard, Sorloth, Oscar Bob, Erling Haaland. Midfield and attack looks great, and defense could always pop up as well. Therefore, Norway go through. And this next game, honestly, this is my straight up reaction. We don't even have to go through it. Let's go to the next game. Let's just not even talk about that one. Okay, but all in all, Argentina are just a better team. They will go through over the United States. This is another World Cup 2022 round of 16, exactly the round of 16 matchup from last World Cup. And I think it will be a similar outcome, just obviously not a Gonzalo Ramos hat trick or a 6-1 goal difference. I think this will be a way more evened out game, but obviously, come on, Portugal will go through. And that's all for round of 16. Now with the quarterfinals, we're going to get some good games, like this one. We kind of have a good idea of who's going to win. Netherlands, who I don't think are in the greatest form that they could possibly be in right now, looking at the World Cup qualifier stats, which they did top the group, but not the greatest run they've had in 2025 overall. In France, they're just calmly just staying consistent, and I do think France is still a much better team than the Netherlands and are gonna win this quarterfinal game. So I do predict France going through. Spain versus Turkey. And here, both teams are pretty good. I mean, well, Turkey is pretty good, and then Spain is just one of the top teams, if not the best team right now in the world. And it's just wrong to predict Turkey going over Spain. So right now, I just predict that Spain will win without a problem against Turkey, but great run from Turkey in the quarterfinals. And now for the next game. Oh my goodness, what a game we have here. Morocco versus Norway. Here, both teams I do predict to do very well in the World Cup. Norway obviously having their great European World Cup qualifier run, and then Morocco nicely getting to the World Cup through Africa, and AFCON getting to the finals, getting second place eventually. Right here, I do think both teams will have a very close game and possibly could be a very high scoring game, as Norwegians have a fantastic attack with Martin Odegaard in the midfield, giving those passes to Holland, Sorloth, Oscar Bob, and on and on. There's so many great potentials here, but Morocco, I feel like they've been in this situation before. Quarterfinals, semifinal games, last World Cup quarterfinals, and I do think Morocco just have the upper hand with the game because they have been in this position before and will advance. And this is the game that people talk about a lot, a potential quarterfinal game, Argentina versus Portugal. And here, eventually with my predictions, this quarterfinal game has become true. And here, this is a very interesting game because Portugal, I feel like, have gotten definitely better since 2022 in the last World Cup, and Argentina might have kind of deteriorated with how good they were in the 2022 World Cup. They are still definitely a top 3 team, Argentina. And Portugal, I feel like they were pretty worse, but now they are definitely becoming a better squad, except those few mess ups in the World Cup qualifiers. But this is what matters. Cristiano Ronaldo's last World Cup, Leo Messi's last World Cup. This is just gonna be a entirely different atmosphere here. This will be a crazy game that people have been talking about for years and years to happen, and it could finally happen in one of the biggest stages of the world, and in such a high stake game in the quarterfinals. This could be a game changing result. And right now, both teams are in fabulous form, and this would just be super difficult to predict. But right now, I do feel like Argentina will go through against Portugal. What a great game this would be. But right now, Argentina will still go through, and Ronaldo will never win a World Cup. Here we go to the top 4 teams. France versus Spain. What a great game. Rematch in the same stages, just a different competition. Instead of the Euros, it's the World Cup. Same stage here. Right now, these two teams by far have been the most impressive teams in the past few years. With Spain winning the World Cup 15 years ago and being dominant then, now they're dominant back again with a more youthful squad again. And France have been just being consistent ever since the 2018 World Cup. Even 2016, going back to 2016 Euros, France has been one of these top teams and winning the World Cup, getting second, but just getting to the finals consistently. Here, I do believe it could end. And right now, as things stand, I think Spain will still be a better team, and Spain will go through over France. Next semifinal game is Morocco versus Argentina. Could Messi go to his 3rd ever World Cup final and win his 2nd World Cup? Or will Morocco, an African team, first ever African team to get to the finals? Right now, I think Morocco aren't the best team ever since the 2022 World Cup. It was just a shock that they made it this far. I do believe they have an amazing chance to go through right now to the semifinals, and I do think they will currently. But right now, I still think Argentina will go to the final. Morocco knocked out in the semifinals once again by a big powerhouse. And the World Cup final, Spain versus Argentina. This is who I predict the top two teams will be for the World Cup. As things stand, I will make other videos with new predictions and updated predictions, especially after the March international window and right before the World Cup starts. So right now we do have Argentina versus Spain for the first early prediction. And right now these teams, literally in the FIFA rankings, top 1 and top 2, they fully deserve to be in this final. These teams are just absolutely amazing. Will Lamine Yamal win his first World Cup, or will Messi win his second World Cup? This would be a very interesting game, Spain versus Argentina, with a lot of history behind this. This could go any way, but right now I feel like Spain are just better currently as things stand. Spain could be beatable, but in this moment, at this stake, Spain will not be beaten, and they win the World Cup for my prediction. Thank you guys so much for watching this long formatted World Cup prediction video. Like, I love making these videos, and I cannot wait to make the next one. So I am waiting for this March international window, see what all teams will make it to the World Cup. Just overall, put your prediction in the comments of who do you think currently will win the World Cup. I do think is Spain. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Goodbye.